Anson Mount reveals Star Trek Strange New Worlds' real lead character. People keep calling this an ensemble show, and it's not. When Star Trek Strange New Worlds debuted in 2022, it was immediately hailed as a fresh return to the episodic, character-driven storytelling that defined classic Trek. Audiences and critics alike praised the way the series balanced Captain Christopher Pike's moral center with the unique perspectives of Spock, Number 1, Lon, M'Benga, Uhura, and the rest of the Enterprise crew. The general consensus was clear. Strange New Worlds was an ensemble show, the first Trek since Deep Space Nine to truly give every main character equal weight. But according to Anson Mount, the actor who brings Pike to life, that assumption has been slightly off from the beginning. In a recent interview, Mount didn't mince words. People keep calling this an ensemble show, and it's not, he said. We have an ensemble cast, yes, but there's a difference. Strange New Worlds is ultimately about one character's journey, and that's been true since day one. Mount's comment has sent ripples through the Star Trek fandom, sparking debates over who the real lead of Strange New Worlds might be. Is it Pike himself, a tragic hero navigating his knowledge of his future death? Is it Spock, whose emotional evolution from Vulcan logic to a more human empathy has been one of the show's most consistent through lines? Or could it even be Cadet Nyota Uhura, the viewer's entry point into the 23rd century, and the one character who's appeared in every single episode to date? The answer, as Mount explained in the interview, is a little more complicated and a lot more revealing about what makes Strange New Worlds tick. Pike at the center of the star chart. Mount began by acknowledging the obvious. Yes, Captain Pike is technically the captain, and yes, the show follows his point of view in many of its most pivotal episodes. Look at the pilot, he said. It's Pike coming back from leave. He's traumatized. He's questioning whether he even wants to be in Starfleet anymore. Everything that happens in that first episode is about pulling him back into the chair. That's not ensemble storytelling. That's a character arc. It's a good point. The first season's opening hours, Pike's visions of his disfigured future self, his conversations with Spock about fate and duty, his desperate attempts to save lives even at his own expense, are all framed as deeply personal stakes. While the other characters are fleshed out, their stories often orbit Pike's moral dilemmas. Season 2 doubled down on this, making Pike's relationship with Captain Battle a source of tension that reverberated through the whole crew. Chris Pike has a secret, Mount said. He knows how and when he's going to die. Every decision he makes is colored by that. You can't tell me that's not a main character's story. This isn't to say Pike's arc overshadows everyone else's, but Mount insists it's the spine of the show. I think people confuse episodic with ensemble, he said. We do have standalone episodes that highlight other characters, but the long game is always about Pike's journey, Spock, Uhura, and the illusion of equal focus. Mount also addressed the perception that Spock or Uhura might be the show's secret leads. Spock is the franchise's most famous character. Of course he gets attention, Mount said. And Celia Rose Gooding has been phenomenal as Uhura. It's been a privilege watching her make that role her own. But the show's title isn't Spock and Friends, it's Strange New Worlds. That's a captain's log. That's Pike's perspective. He's not wrong. The very structure of the episodes, opening with a captain's log, closing with Pike reflecting on the mission's outcome, evokes the original series, which always framed its stories through Captain Kirk's eyes. Even episodes like Charades or Among the Lotus Eaters, which seem at first glance to be Spock or Lon-centric, end up highlighting Pike's leadership choices or his empathy for his crew. But Mount is also careful to give credit where it's due. This isn't the Pike show, he said. I never wanted it to be that. It's a captain surrounded by brilliant people. But the emotional through line has to come from somewhere, or else you're just doing vignettes. Pike's journey gives us that anchor. It's an anchor that has arguably made the show stronger. By centering Pike but allowing each crew member to shine in turn, Strange New Worlds has achieved something rare. A Star Trek series that feels both classic and modern, episodic and serialized. Mount seems to believe that clarity of focus is exactly why the show works. The captain's burden. Perhaps the most striking part of Mount's revelation is how it reframes Pike's burden of foreknowledge. Star Trek fans have long known about Pike's fate, the horrific accident aboard a training ship, the wheelchair, the blinking light. But Strange New Worlds has made it a living, breathing part of the drama. Mount called it the captain's burden. Every Star Trek captain has their thing, he said. Kirk had his swagger. Picard had his diplomacy. Sisko had his faith. For Pike, it's foreknowledge. He's living every day knowing he's on borrowed time. That's what we're exploring. How does a man lead when he knows he's doomed? That framing also explains some of the show's tonal shifts. One week, Pike is a genial, almost fatherly presence in the galley, cooking for his crew. The next, he's wrestling with the Federation's darkest compromises, as in Ad Astra per Aspera. Through it all, the question remains, how do you remain hopeful when you know the universe's cruelty firsthand? In Mount's view, that question is the true heart of the series, and it's Pike's to answer. That's why I say it's not an ensemble show, he explained, because without Pike's journey, the rest doesn't hold together. We'd just be doing cool sci-fi stories. His dilemma gives those stories weight. A long tradition of one lead trek. Interestingly, Mount's remarks also place Strange New Worlds in a long Star Trek tradition. While fans often remember The Next Generation or Voyager as ensemble shows, the reality is that each had a clear anchor. Picard on TNG, Janeway on Voyager, Sisko on DS9, at least after Season 2. Even Enterprise, billed as a return to classic ensemble Trek, ultimately revolved around Captain Archer's decisions. Mount nodded to that legacy in his interview. Star Trek is aspirational, he said. It's about leadership. It's about vision. That's why there's always a captain at the center. Even if you love the supporting cast, the show lives or dies on the captain. This doesn't mean the supporting characters aren't essential. In fact, Mount argued the opposite. The crew makes the captain, he said. Pike isn't Pike without Spock, number 1 Uhura Lon Mabenga, or Tegas Chapel. There is conscience, his family. But narratively, you need that point of gravity. Season 3 and beyond, Pike's destiny looms. Mount's comments also hint at what's to come in the next seasons. Season 2 ended with a nail-biting cliffhanger involving Captain Battle and the Gorn, and many fans assumed Season 3 would pivot to focus more on the ensemble as the Enterprise faces a potential war. But if Mount's framing is correct, those events will still be filtered primarily through Pike's eyes. The stakes are going to get higher, Mount teased. Pike's future isn't going away. If anything, it's coming into sharper focus. And how he handles that will affect everyone on board. This is consistent with how the show has already used Pike's foreknowledge, not as a static piece of trivia, but as a catalyst for change. Each time Pike tries to alter his fate, he learns something new about himself and about command. If Season 3 continues that trajectory, we may see Pike move closer than ever to the accident that defines his legend. At the same time, Mount stressed that the show won't neglect its beloved side characters. They're going to keep giving people great Spock stories, great Uhura stories, he promised. But you're going to see how all of that ties back to Pike's leadership. That's our North Star. Redefining ensemble for modern Trek. Ultimately, Mount's remarks aren't a dismissal of the ensemble label so much as a redefinition of it. We have the best ensemble cast on TV, period, he said. I'm honored to work with them. But there's a difference between an ensemble cast and an ensemble show. One's about talent. The other's about structure. He added, what we are doing is threading a needle. We are making a character-driven what lets us do